What is going on? What is happening, FanDuel friends and family? And welcome into the Week 13 FanDuel Monday Night Football Q&A and preview show. Ryan Williams coming at you. You can find me on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. And I'm here joined by my usual co-host, my friend as always, Jim Sonis. You can find him on Twitter at Jim Sonis, senior writer and analyst for Number Fire and FanDuel. Jim, my friend, how are you doing this fine Monday afternoon?
I am excited for what should be a really weird football game tonight, and I think it's going to be kind of fun to watch. It's one of those where I wish there were some snow. It sounds like probably not going to get snow, but it's going to be very windy. It's going to be probably pretty wild. And I live over in Syracuse, a couple hours from Buffalo. I took the dog out this afternoon to take her out, and
Okay.
it's real windy. The reports are not wrong. So I think this game is going to be nuts, and I'm very excited. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Jim. I'm excited to be able to pick your brain here. As we got the guy Kevin Roth on Twitter, who a lot of DFS industry people follow, and I mean he's great, right? That's who you want. But I mean, Jim Sonis and you and Brandon Gadula have really gone after this win talk over the years ad nauseum. So I'm excited to be able to pick your brain on how you're attacking slates, how you're attacking these totals, how you're attacking the props. We'll get into all of that for you guys here on the week 12. I'm sorry, I think I said week 13 at the beginning.
But it is week 13. You were right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we are week 13. You see, the weeks are all blending together, and it's going to throw me off with the extra week, Jim.
After 9, everything's done. I don't know what number is number anymore.
I love it. I love it. Guys, we appreciate you guys coming in here for the Week 13 preview show, Q&A. Make sure you get your questions in. I already see the questions flowing in. Shout out to Grimfan for being in here, Brian Roel being in here, Derek Wilkerson. We appreciate all the action. Jim, I appreciate you throwing up the questions. I will make sure to get to these questions, but I do want to ask you just your overall view of this game here, because this is an interesting one that we have. I mean, a lot of playoff implications. The division implications here in the AFC East are huge for this game. Patriots really, I don't know. I haven't really seen the public line, but I just feel like all week, because I kind of talked this game up in a couple different spots. I liked Patriots. They were getting +3 earlier on in the week. I figured that line would move a little bit. It's only moved by the hook by 0.5 point to 2.5 right now, but that's plus money right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I think it really makes for an interesting narrative here, as the Bills, they kind of had dealt with some mid-season woes, right? Just not able to get everything together. I mean, this team looked not great against Jacksonville, and now all of a sudden they have one of their toughest matchups at home, and so much public perception is that the Buffalo Bills are going to win this game. How are you feeling about this game in general?
Yeah, I mean, if you gave me this game in typical weather, I would feel pretty good with the Bills here, because I just think that they're like the better overall team. I have more faith in their offense than the Patriots offense when they're both facing tougher defenses. Both have had their flaws, but I feel better about Josh Allen hitting his highs than Mac Jones hitting his highs right now. But then you toss in this weather stuff, and I think it's a legit concern. So you were talking about how Brandon and I talk about weather. Typically, we're looking at, 15 plus mile per hour winds. We see quarterbacks underperform projections by about 7 to 10%. And that's fine. You get a decrease of 7 to 10%, but we're at 28 mile per hour winds. That's a lot more than 15. Am I looking back at other data? There was a game between, I don't know who Cleveland was facing, but 2013, 2014, Cleveland was facing someone, and Josh Gordon went off for a bajillion yards. I don't expect that to happen, but for whatever that's the one game I can think of where winds were this high. You think back to last year, had some of those Cleveland games too, where the winds were super, super high, but those both wound up being super low scoring. And I think the wind will cause a legitimate issue. So then you ask yourself, okay, which team's going to be better able to move the football here? And it's so hard to see the Bills doing that on the ground, because they haven't tried to do that this year.
Right.
Teams have encouraged them to run, and they just haven't done it. Whereas the Patriots, I think they have the personnel, because they just got big dudes up front. And I think that kind of personnel can move the ball on the ground against the Bills. So to me, that makes it a stay away. If my default is Bills, but then the conditions talk me out of that, it makes it a stay away in terms of betting for me in terms of the side. So I think it's a stay away from me. That's a really long way of saying it's a stay away.
Fair
But I
enough.
think because I feel better about the Bills overall, but feel better about the Patriots in these conditions, to me, that just says I should just enjoy the game and not bet it, like on the
Absolutely.
sides perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is going to be a fun one. I know a lot of people in season-long leagues as well too probably have some stuff that's coming down to the wire for them. I myself have a couple season-longs playoff implications where Mac Jones and Tyler Bass and the Patriots defense are in play. So going to be a fun one. Let's just start off at the top here at defense and talk about some of these questions. Appreciate everybody who's rolling in here on the FanDuel Q&A preview show. We really appreciate that, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, what have you. Thanks for rocking along with us. We're going to start it off with Grimfan. And Grimfan is asking who's the better defensive option tonight. And I want to kind of parlay that into some of the special teams kind of questions too that we're getting about Bass and Nick Folk and things of that nature, Jim. So when you're looking at this side on both sides, we do have a huge implication on defense for the Bills, and that's Tre'Davious White is out for the season. So that's going to be a tough loss for them. We have not seen how this defense will, come together and play without him missing. I mean, that's a huge catalyst on that side. And then you got the other side of the Patriots who have absolutely been stout on defense. I mean, this is prime Bill Belichick just going into his bag, reaching back into when he was defensive coordinator, those early Patriots teams. And we saw it right in the offseason, just building up the personnel, bringing in free agents to kind of build up this defense. And that's what they've been doing. I feel like this is, and with the wind and weather implications too. I mean, this is just a perfect scenario for the Patriots stifling defense to kind of limit what Buffalo's doing. How do you feel about the defenses on either side?
Yeah, in general, like I have a higher opinion of the Patriots defense. I think that Josh Allen's style of play is better for defensive scoring, even though I expect Josh Allen to like put up points. They also are more pass heavy, which means more chances for sacks, more chances for interceptions, stuff like that, which is what you need for defensive scoring. And also, if you're going to get a fumble, typically they're more likely to come from quarterbacks on sacks than they are from any other type of play. So that lends itself towards the Patriots being the better option, despite the fact they are underdogs here. I think a big part of the reason why I feel okay saying that is because I'm not sure how often the Patriots will pass here. Like, given the conditions, I think they could probably run the football here. We're probably going to get, like, I'm not projecting 20 pass attempts from Mac Jones, but like, if we got 20, I wouldn't be shocked just because the way this game sets up, which means you've effectively got 20 chances to get a sack, interception, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas with the Bills, it may still be 30 to 40. It's a very wide range, I know, but like, I think you'll just have more chances to score points on that side. So I expect the Patriots to let up a couple more points because I think the Bills will probably win this game by a slight margin. But despite that, given the pass drop back volume, I agree with you that the Patriots the better defensive option here.
Excellent. And yes, and I do kind of lean that side as well. Jim, because you're looking at this Patriots team. I mean, since week 5, they've put up 3 touchdowns and a field goal or more, consistently scoring 24 points or more since week 5. And the Bills are pretty much doing the same on offense. We haven't seen those explosive games, kind of like the Chiefs, right? Like the Chiefs needed a little bit of time to kind of get better. And this could really show me a lot for the Buffalo Bills if they're able to go out here and regardless of it's through the run or the pass, just kind of dictate the script in this game and not look like they're struggling on offense and we know what Belichick likes to do. He likes to take out what the team does best. Well, what is that for the Bills? That's passing the football. And we did see a game in 2020 where most of the scoring, if not all, I believe, came through the ground for Buffalo. Zach Moss got 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen ran for a touchdown. They just, kind of took what the defense was giving them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this week, what they do tonight against the Patriots team. I know we got a lot of questions rolling in, guys. I'm going to make sure that I get to them. Let's parlay this into the running back scenario. I see that Brian Roel, who's joining us on Facebook, he's got a couple questions in, but I think one of his best questions here that I'm looking at is Mac Breida going to have a decent game? Now, we've seen Zach Moss kind of get coach DNPs here, getting scratched as of late, not doing too much. So it's pretty much the Singletary and Breida show. Do you have a inclination as to who would be the lead back. And we can kind of parlay that, Jim, too, into their prices here. You got 8K for Singletary in the FanDuel single game slate, and Matt Breida's coming in at 7,500. So the FanDuel did it well and priced them right around each other, where you have to pick one or the other.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close, honestly. You look back to last week, and I can actually pull this up over here. So last week for the Bills, Singletary played 68% of the snaps. When that game was close in the first 2 quarters, I think it was like 57% Singletary versus like 43% Breida. So it was a closer split when that game stayed close, and Breida did have more yardage in that game than Singletary. So I wouldn't be shocked if Breida outscores Singletary. So what I want to do is kind of get a read on, okay, who do people prefer? Because if people are going to go more heavily towards Singletary, I would want to go towards Breida. If they're going to go towards Breida, I want to go towards Singletary, because like their expectation is very similar in terms of yardage, in terms of usage and stuff like that. And honestly, like their expectations probably pretty similar to the Patriots, because like that's a 3-man committee versus a 2-man committee. Now, with that said, I would not be shocked if Zach Moss is active tonight, just because it could be such a run-heavy game. I could see that being the case. Would I expect him to get good usage? No. Like, he's been inactive for a reason. So I wouldn't expect big things out of him if that were to happen. But I would say now I wouldn't be shocked if he winds up being active. And if Zach Moss is active, then I would lower things for Singletary and Moss on the whole. But like, if we go in right now and assume that Zach Moss is inactive, I give a very slight edge to Singletary, but not a big enough edge where I would, go all in on Singletary, even if he is a more popular option between the two.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at Matt Breida, I mean, what he's kind of been able to do, switching teams kind of mid-season here, the attempts really haven't been there. And we can chalk that up to what the Bills like to do, because the rushing attempts as a whole just aren't going to be what you see from a particular team. But he's just been so efficient with the touches that he's getting. And really what's made his weeks is he's had 3 touchdowns, since I believe since joining the Buffalo Bills there, since November 14th in that Jets game. So, if he gets a score, we talk about this all the time, that in a game like this, if you're projecting, what is it? 40 and a half, I think is what the total is now on FanDuel. Yeah. 40 and a half is on the FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're expecting this to be a grinded out game and Matt Breida scores the touchdown and he's like one of the touchdowns in this game that you had to have, it kind of makes sense to plug him in, and you're not really using a lot of that salary up for him. Now, I want to get to some of these other questions here in the chat too, Jim, and let's flip it over to the Patriots side. I know you kind of said that you could see them not really leaning on Mac Jones here, and we really haven't seen them need to lead on Mac Jones a lot. It will be interesting if the Bills kind of are able to open this up at home, kind of what their offensive approach is with him. And through that, we got to kind of talk about some of these wide receivers. So we got the guy Kendrick Bourne. All right, this guy who was once at San Francisco and buried on the depth chart down yonder. This guy has come into the New England Patriots this season, and I guess he just catches touchdowns. I don't know what's going on here. Putting up, 2 20-point FanDuel performances, 20-point FanDuel performance games in the past 3, 3 touchdowns in the past 3 games as well. And really, it really hasn't hit that 100-yard mark, but he just kind of always seems to be, when they need to make a big play, Mac Jones is looking for this guy. It's not Jacoby Myers. It's not Nelson Aguilar. It's really Kendrick Bourne. And the price is reflective of that. This guy comes in at $11K on the FanDuel single game slate. That makes it kind of hard to digest when you're kind of looking at it. You got Jacoby Myers at 9,500. You have to scroll all the way down to $7K for Nelson Aguilar. What is your thoughts about the New England receiving core? Just with the receivers, we can talk about the tight ends as well too.
Yeah, I think that, so looking at Kendrick Bourne, he's been good. Like, he's played well. And so that's why he's been able to come through, despite the fact he hasn't had like the best volume. Going back over here, over his past 5 games, 7, 4, 4, 4, and 6 targets. Like, that's nothing you're gonna write home about. As far as the deep targets go, he's getting maybe 1 per game maximum. Mm-hmm. But Kendrick Bourne is the guy who kind of comes through in like those key situations. 2 red zone targets this past week. He had a longer touchdown, I think, last week too. I think that second touchdown was a pretty impressive one. So he's playing really well. With that said, the usage does still favor Jacoby Myers. If we look here, let's go see the past 5 games here, just for funsies. And over the past 5 games, it's still 23% target share for Jacoby Myers versus 19% for Kendrick Bourne. So although Kendrick Bourne is playing really well, I still think, and like, a Grim fan is asking, do you believe in him? Yeah, I believe in him. Like, he's played well. I don't believe in him enough to have like a lot of conviction in ranking him above Jacoby Myers. So I think like, if you gave me both of them in a vacuum, I would say, go with the guy who's playing better. That'd be Kendrick Bourne. But we're not in a vacuum. We're in a situation where I'd expect, given the way they've performed and given the salaries, that Kendrick Bourne's probably going to be the more popular guy, which means I'm okay going to Jacoby Myers here. $9,500. He's had good usage, get some downfield work. That might not matter as much for today, but I still think the usage is there for Myers. So I think that for me, among the New England pass catchers, I think Myers is the best play at $9,500. Hunter Henry, $9,000 too. He just scores touchdowns. Like, that's what he does.
Yep.
I have no objections to those guys. I think the volume should be pretty muted, but I think that Myers and Henry both work really well. Bourne, justifiably higher salary, but with the higher salary, with the increased popularity, I'm okay going to Myers instead.
Yeah, I love that target share for Jacoby Myers. And just, especially when you're thinking about FanDuel, where the touchdowns just carry more weight. And what's the narrative around Jacoby Myers, right? Is that this guy just doesn't catch touchdowns. He's only had 1 career NFL touchdown to his name. It might be 2 now, but I know there was a lot made when he caught that first one, which was absolutely incredible that he'd gone that long, because he has been very, very stellar in the passing game for this team as well, too. You're looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook. You got Kendrick Bourne at plus 250 to score an anytime touchdown. I know Brandon Willoughby joining us on Facebook was asking if we thought he would score tonight. I mean, you're looking at 3 touchdowns in the past 3 games. If, odds are in your favor. I'm not really sure. I can pull it up, but I wanted to look at their red zone roles and kind of how they were utilized there. Because I still think that the tight ends are getting a lot of that equity there when they get into the red zone.
Just a bunch of 2s in the red zone target department for Hunter Henry, basically.
Fair enough. So yeah, not, and that just speaks to how they attack, right? They're going to look to run it in when they get close. So, but that's an interesting bet to take if you think that Kendrick Bourne is going to have a decent game. Also, follow-up question with Brandon Willoughby, or better yet, who has a better chance to score, Diggs or Bourne? Well, I think we got to go with Stephon Diggs there. Even, best odds to score an anytime touchdown on the FanDuel Sportsbook, but you're still getting plus 160 on Diggs scoring. I mean, this guy has been the alpha in this offense for basically the entire year. I mean, we can talk about Cole Beasley and how he's kind of come on late, is going to be in that security blanket over the middle, and Dawson Knox has kind of come into his own this year, but Stephon Diggs is the guy to make it go. Now, DJ Cassier is joining us. DJ, shout out to you, man. We know you join us every Monday here, and I kind of want to hit on a couple of his questions. I'm going to keep it in the wide receiver realm first, and he's asking about Gabriel Davis, Jim. And Gabriel Davis was a guy who kind of caught some steam last year, kind of coming into the fold there. That was before they brought in Manny Sanders. Now Manny Sanders has been there, and he really hasn't done much as of late. Kind of struggled to kind of get things going, especially with Cole Beasley coming into the fold and Dawson Knox kind of coming out of his shell. What's your take on the Buffalo wide receivers as they come to after Stephon Diggs, and who would you be willing to kind of plug into your lineups here? As there is kind of Stephon Diggs is 14K on the FanDuel single game slate, but then you got 9,500, 10,000, and 10,500 for Sanders, Beasley, and Knox respectively. You have to scroll all the way down past Zach Moss and all these guys to get to Gabe Davis, who I thought I saw him in the 6K range, but I'll find out. What are your thoughts on the pass catchers for Buffalo?
Yeah, so Gabriel Davis is $6,500. You got Beasley up at 10K, Meyer and Manny at 9.5, and Knox at 10.5 as well. And I think that, so DJ's asking about Davis, and like, I'm not sure where I'm at with Davis from a single game perspective, because just doesn't get a lot of volume. But I will say, would not be shocked if his role goes up for tonight, because Gabriel Davis is a better blocker than Cole Beasley. And like, if you're thinking about this game from we probably need to pound the rock perspective, I'd rather have Gabriel Davis out there than Cole Beasley. You look back to last week, and Davis did get a slight role increase. He had 10 routes run there versus 25 or 24 for Beasley. So like that was a little bit better than what it was previously. The snap rate overall for Davis last week was 44%. So like it wasn't great yet, but like it did increase, and I wouldn't be shocked if it increases more for tonight. Now, the bigger implication for me of that is that I am lowering my thoughts on Cole Beasley, because if he's going to lose some snaps to Gabriel Davis, that's a concern. And Manny's role has been frustrating. I've used plenty of Manny so far this year. Has not been good, has not been successful. But I think that he's at least in play. But honestly, like I might just go Dawson Knox. I know that like the overall workload has not been very good for Dawson Knox in the 3 games back, 1, 10, and 3 targets, but a couple red zone targets. He's gotten some deep looks. So he had 3 deep targets back in week 11. I feel like among these guys, I'm actually kind of okay going with Knox 1, just because weirdly I feel best about his upside. And like, that's something I would have said a couple weeks ago, but I do think that like, I think that's enough. So I'll go Knox. What about you?
Yeah, Knox is actually my favorite Buffalo Bill to get action on tonight. You're looking at plus 270 for him for an anytime touchdown. I mean, I just, if they're going to get in close, and they've run so many of these, kind of pick plays, screen plays, flat plays with Dawson Knox to kind of get him open in space when they get into the red zone. I just absolutely just think he has a significant role in this offense, and I'm willing to take a shot on him. You're looking at over 28.5 there for his yardage prop. I don't know how I necessarily feel about that in a game like this, but when they get into the red zone, just having that chance to get a touchdown from him, I definitely love that. So yeah, I was looking at trying to put him into lineups. I mean, this is going to be a tough one, Jim. I usually try and play, the 3 max tournaments in the single game up to 5 max, but usually try and keep it condensed. And this is one where I kind of want to build different scenarios for how this game is going. And especially knowing that weather will affect how people play the slate, right? And so that's kind of where I kind of want to take advantage of. So I might have to look at a 20 max for tonight and just kind of take a shot on some different things. And I love that it's the Bills and Patriots, because these are teams where I can feel like I can get exposure to the different pieces and kind of feel good about it. Whereas some of these other teams we talked about, like Baltimore and Pittsburgh and Kansas City, who have been on this single game slates, it's like, okay, I want to have Tyreek Hill. I want to have Kelsey. So I build more teams with these guys instead of being able to think outside the box a little bit.
Like with this game, like, how many guys do you fear missing out on? Like, you fear missing out on Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, maybe Mac. Like, that's it. So, like, you can be more weird, and you can, like, okay, I can look at Damian Harris from Andre Stevens and be like, yeah, totally, I can see this happening. Like, as opposed to, like, Byron Pringle. Like, I can better envision, we were talking about Devin Singletary and Matt Breida. I can see them paying off more than again, Byron Pringle's fun, so, like, no disrespect to him, but, like, I can just see it better. So I think it's a very uncomfortable slate, but I mean that in a good way.
Yes. The more uncomfortable the slate is, the better. I shouldn't say the better it is for me, because it's not always, but the more I feel like I'm able to build confident lines, especially in tournaments, because, we always talk about it. You got to be willing to lose. You got to be willing to kind of take it on the chin. So when I'm putting in these guys or whatever, I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, I didn't really have a grasp on what the New England Patriots were going to do anyway. So let's just throw it in there, have a little bit fun. It does make for a lot more fun. But we can't sign off, Jim, before we talk about the New England side of things. And really what it comes down to is the running back situation. You got Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, who are going to be, both active there. Both have been kind of getting in work, so to speak. Damian Harris has kind of been dealing with a lingering injury all season long, it feels like, and that's kind of led to Ramondre Stevenson getting, lead back work in some of these games. You still have Brandon Bolden in the mix too, who's kind of been involved. What would be your take on the running back situation there for people? Because if we're looking at the single game slate, just in general, we got Damian Harris, and deservedly so. He's priced at 12.5, but then right below him, you got Ramondre Stevenson right there at 12,000. And I'm wondering, Jim, does it make any sense to play both of them together in a single game lineup.
Yeah, so looking back at the past couple weeks here, back in week 12, Damian Harris, 52 rushing yard or 52 total yards from scrimmage, Stevenson 46. Back in week 11, Harris had 65, Stevenson had 75. On this specific slate, if both of them or one of them scores a touchdown, that could be enough for they're both in there at the same time. So I'm actually glad you asked that, because I think that that's a great way to play things, is potentially have both, just because the way we expect this game to play out and the fact that both are getting enough yardage to potentially pay off simultaneously. Now, the question is, do you, not in the same lineup, but how much do you go with Brandon Bolden there? I think for me, it's probably minimal, except for the situations where you expect the Patriots take a lead or the Bills take a lead. It may put him in a negative script, because I can still see Bolden getting some passing game work there. So to me, I think having both in the same lineup is pretty viable. Personally, between the two, I do lean towards Harris still. It's a lean, though. So it's kind of similar to the Bill situation, where if I get to read that Harris will be a lot more popular, then give me Ramondre Stevenson. Very talented player. He's gotten good enough work, very similar work to Damian Harris. I'd be okay pivoting. If I get to read that Stevenson's more popular, I'll go Harris. So it's weird where I kind of want to read sentiment on both these backfields, but I think given the lack of a split between the two guys in each side, I'm okay playing things that way.
Yeah, and I think this is where my personal bias will come into play, Jim, because I'm a big Damian Harris guy. People kind of got me onto him his rookie season, and so I've kind of just let that ride. And he has been a catalyst for this team and has been the more I shouldn't say more, because Ramondre Stevenson looked good when he got the backfield to himself. But he has had some explosive games to start the season. He is leading the team in red zone touchdowns as far as rushing goes, with 7. And then you got Ramondre Stevenson right behind him with 3. But 32 attempts to 17 attempts respectively. So I do think that they do want to lean on Damian Harris, but they do, they switch it up enough where I could see, Harris leading him down. He breaks off a couple runs, gets 30 yards or 40 yards on one drive, and then we get into the red zone. Hey, let's bring in Stevenson here to spell him, or vice versa, right? Stevenson can break off a 50-yard run, and then they put in Damian Harris. He gets the touchdown. So that's what makes me really interested in getting both of these guys onto teams. Before we wrap it up here, I just want to make sure we're getting into some of these other questions here. DJ Cassier also coming into the chat on Facebook asking about Jonnu Smith and his props. How do we feel about that? They have been using him a little bit as a rushing piece as well. And DJ also alluded to that. Now, when you're looking at his anytime touchdown prop, you got to come on here, and it's all the way down. Where did I see him? Yeah, 650 is where Jonnu Smith is coming out. I just looked just for giggles to see if they had Jonnu Smith rushing props at all, which is not live. But what are your thoughts here on the tight ends in general for New England?
Yeah, I just like his usage is so hard to predict, because there was that 1 week where he had the shoulder injury and it seemed like he was going to play and he was inactive. And like, that was probably due to the shoulder injury, but like, it was kind of unexpected that he was inactive. And last week they like featured him on the first series. Like he was getting targets there,
right? Like
getting screen passes and stuff like that. So I have no firm grasp on what his role is in this offense. So to me, that makes him a stay away, because like they could have a situation where they just pepper the tight ends tonight, and that could lead to an over for his passing yardage. Because like my initial inclination was towards the under, but then I'm like, they could just lean on the tight ends here. I don't know what his role is going to be. So to me, he's someone I don't want to touch. I'd be more inclined to, like, if I were looking at tight end props in general, like just any tight end props, I think Hunter Henry, 23.5 receiving yards. I could talk myself into an over there. Okay. Hunter Henry anytime touchdown is 4-1. That's my favorite tight end prop between these two guys. Is the Hunter Henry touchdown prop 4-1? As mentioned, he's had multiple red zone targets, and I think 4 of the past 5 games now. So like they go to him. I'm not into touchdown props in general for tonight, because I'm not sure how many touchdowns there will be. But I think if I'm looking at that market overall, my favorite one is the Hunter Henry touchdown prop at plus 400.
No, I absolutely love that. I also was looking at Dawson Knox as well as we're talking about touchdown scores. First touchdown for Dawson Knox, 11-1 odds. I think that's fair probably reasonable to get in on. You're not really taking advantage there. Josh Allen 10-1 is also intriguing. If they get down into the red zone and he can run it in, always the quarterback rushing props are always fun to get after. As well, you got 10-1, I believe, on Mac Jones to score anytime too. So that could be the most tilting one of all. Is if you load up on running backs for this team and Mac Jones gets down on the one and is able to sneak it in. That's fun. Also, some other fun ones, Jim. You got the defense for New England to score an anytime, or wait, that might be first. Yeah, that is first time touchdown. Anytime touchdown for the New England defense is 8-1. So that's just how they've been playing. I mean, it's crazy to me that Buffalo, actually, maybe because of Isaiah McKenzie, but Buffalo special teams is 7-1. I would not have pinned that prior to. I would think that New England would be more favored, but I'm sure Isaiah McKenzie has a lot to do with that.
Well, the McKenzie one is also interesting because they kind of use him in the red zone a decent amount. So looking at that number 10-1,
Sure.
anytime touchdown, I'm tempted. I'm not going on it yet. I will say
Okay.
that, but I'm looking at it, Ryan. I'm thinking about it, and the wheels are turning. Can I justify this? These are my hard-earned dollars. Do I actually want to burn them on an Isaiah McKenzie anytime touchdown? I kind of want to, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm thinking about it though.
Fair enough. And we still have time, Jim. We got plenty of time before a lock. And if you guys want to figure out if Jim does end up placing that Isaiah McKenzie back, I'm sure he'll share that with you guys on his social media. At Jim Sannes is where you can find him on Twitter. Thanks so much, Jim, for joining in. And guys, make sure you're checking out the FanDuel Sportsbook. Ton of props there. You guys make sure you're looking at the boosts as well. Fun way to get action on the games is they'll kind of boost up some favorable popular or maybe some that you're not thinking about parlay bets as well that will get boosted up to favorable odds. So always fun to get on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Check up everything as it goes into locking. Guys, we got Buffalo, New England, Monday Night Football here. Thanks for tuning in to the Monday Night Football preview show, Week 13. We'll be back next week talking Week 14 with you guys. You can join us here. Make sure you're watching on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to get all of our videos that are going live, just hit that notification bell. That would be great. You can see all the content as it goes live, get the notification straight to your device or computer, and also hit that like button on it. We appreciate that as well. Signing off for Jim Sannes, at Jim Sannes again is where you can find him on Twitter. I'm Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. We'll catch you guys next time. But until then, get that money. Peace.